America's diplomatic back channel with Iran just closed, not stalled, not paused, closed, with a pipeline threat of 3 days attached. And the same week, Washington sanctioned China's largest oil refinery, and a federal agency began denying permanent residence to people for what they said online. These three things are connected, and what connects them will likely surprise you. The sequence of events was fast and public. Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner had been conducting private negotiations with Iranian representatives operating outside the standard State Department track. The talks were quiet by design. Then on Tuesday, the president made a public statement saying that if Iran did not comply with American demands, its oil pipelines would be destroyed within 3 days. The Witkoff and Kushner talks were cancelled the same day. That combination, an ultimatum delivered publicly while the private channel was shut down, is not a negotiating tactic. It is the end of a negotiating process. When you announce a military strike timeline to the press, you are not leaving room for the other side to respond through diplomacy. You are replacing diplomacy with a countdown. The substance of what America is demanding is a complete end to Iranian uranium enrichment and a halt to ballistic missile development. Iran's position, stated publicly by its foreign minister, is that it will not negotiate the fundamental terms of its nuclear program under military threat. The gap between those two positions has not narrowed. It has widened. Here is what matters beyond the diplomacy. Iran's oil pipeline network moves roughly 2 million barrels per day through infrastructure inside its territory. A strike on those pipelines would not stop Iran's oil from existing. It would stop it from reaching tankers. And tankers are already navigating a constrained Hormuz Strait. The combination of a pipeline disruption inside Iran with continued Hormuz pressure from the Houthi campaign would create a supply shock that none of the models currently circulating in Washington have fully priced. American households are not insulated from that shock. Fuel costs flow directly into transportation, food distribution, and manufacturing. The last time a major Gulf disruption hit comparable infrastructure, fuel prices across the United States rose 23% within 90 days. A disruption of this scale would likely move faster. The administration has not released a cost estimate for what its proposed military action would trigger inside the American economy. That number, whatever it is, belongs in this conversation. Before I continue, if this is the kind of analysis that gets edited out of your usual news feed, subscribe and hit like. The algorithm only learns that this content matters when early viewers react, and that reaction determines whether the next video reaches 10,000 people or 10 million. Tell me in the comments whether the pipeline threat or what you are about to hear next worries you more, and send this to one person who has been asking what is actually happening in US foreign policy right now. The pipeline story tells you where America is pushing. The next story tells you how far that push has already gone against a second target. The Treasury Department sanctioned Hengli Group, one of China's largest independent oil refiners, along with more than 40 affiliated shipping companies. The charge is that Hengli has continued to process Iranian crude in direct violation of American sanctions. The refinery in Dalian processes approximately 500,000 barrels per day. It is not a small operation. Sanctioning it is not a minor signal. What secondary sanctions on a facility this size actually mean is more complex than the announcement suggests. Chinese state institutions do not recognize American unilateral sanctions as legally binding under Chinese domestic law. Hengli will not stop operating because Washington added it to a list. What will happen is that any financial institution, logistics company, or insurer that continues doing business with Hengli will face the risk of American sanctions exposure. That exposure matters most for companies that rely on access to American dollar clearing. It creates a compliance cost and a reputational calculation for every counterparty in Hengli's supply chain. Some will exit, others will not. The ones that stay will be increasingly institutions that have already decided that dollar access matters less than Iranian crude access, which is itself a structural signal about the long-term trajectory of global oil trade. The 40 shipping companies sanctioned alongside Hengli are largely flagged to jurisdictions outside American enforcement reach. The practical effect is to raise friction and cost, not to stop the flow entirely. What America has done is set a price on doing business with Iranian oil. It has not set a ceiling. The third story from this week looks unrelated until you understand what it is measuring. The Department of Homeland Security has implemented a policy under which immigration officers can deny a green card application based on the applicant's public statements about Israel. Specifically, individuals who have participated in pro-Palestine protests, made social media posts critical of Israeli military operations, or attended campus demonstrations may now be flagged as posing a threat to American foreign policy interests. The legal mechanism is a provision that allows denial of permanent residence to individuals deemed to pose a risk to national security or foreign policy. That provision has existed for decades. It has not historically been applied to participation in constitutionally protected political speech. The people affected by this policy are largely legal residents who have been in the United States for years, completed the required waiting periods, paid the required fees, and done everything the system asked of them. The deciding factor is not their actions inside the country in any criminal sense. It is what they said. That is a significant shift. A country that conditions permanent residence on political expression is doing something different from enforcing criminal law. It is enforcing political loyalty at the border of civic membership. The number of applications affected is not yet public. The number of officers now exercising this discretion is not public either. What is public is the policy itself, and what it signals about the criteria America is applying to those seeking to become permanent residents. Step back from the three stories: Iran pipeline threat, China refinery sanctions, green card denial for political speech. What you are watching is a single unified logic applied in three directions simultaneously. The administration is using maximum pressure as its primary instrument, not just against adversaries, but in every domain where it perceives a challenge. Against Iran, it is military pressure. Against China, it is financial pressure. Against its own immigration system, it is ideological pressure. The instrument changes. The logic does not. The question worth sitting with is whether maximum pressure applied simultaneously in all directions produces the outcomes each individual application is designed to achieve, or whether the compounding effect of all three creates a set of consequences that none of them was designed to manage. The pipeline ultimatum expires in 3 days from when it was issued. If Iran does not comply, the administration will face a choice between following through on a public military threat or walking back a public military threat. Neither option is costless. Following through triggers the supply shock described above. Walking back triggers a credibility problem in every subsequent pressure campaign. The China sanctions will move through months of legal challenge and diplomatic friction before their practical effect becomes measurable. The green card policy will generate litigation and congressional attention before its full scope becomes clear. What is already clear is the price American households could pay if even one of the three escalation tracks produces the disruption its own logic implies. An Iran strike means fuel prices. A China financial rupture means supply chain costs. An immigration system that selects for political loyalty means a different kind of country than the one that built the technology and research base that made American power possible in the first place. Ask yourself what all three escalation tracks look like in 12 months if none of them resolves on the terms the administration has demanded. Thank you for staying to the end. I mean that. Every episode takes hours of work. Reading across policy documents, tracking sanctions databases, following diplomatic timelines across multiple news cycles, looking for the connections that the headline coverage skips. I do not accept advertiser relationships or editorial arrangements. That independence has a cost, and the people who make it possible are the ones watching right now. If this was useful, a like and a subscription are how YouTube's algorithm learns that this content deserves to reach more people. Without those signals, the analysis stays invisible to the people who would benefit from it most. If you can spare a super thanks, it goes directly into research time and keeps this channel free of any outside pressure. A channel sponsorship does the same thing at a level that genuinely changes what I can publish every day. Tell me in the comments which of today's stories concerns you most and where in the world you are watching from. I read every comment in the first 48 hours and reply personally to as many as I can. See you tomorrow.